Hi, I'm Rev Myron. I'm a minister through Pathways of Light, and I've been a Course in Miracles student for over 40 years. I'm going through the text again this year, reading it a paragraph or two at a time, asking Jesus for clarity, and then I write from that clarity, and that's what I'm sharing with you today. So let's get started. We're reading from A Course in Miracles, Chapter 11, Section 1, The Gifts of Fatherhood. And today we're going to read paragraphs 6 and 7. So paragraph 6 tells us, God has given you a place in his mind that is yours forever. Let's just sit and think about that for a moment. God has given you a place in his mind that is yours forever. One of the things that I like to do sometimes is to read in first person. So that sentence in particular, God has given me a place in his mind that is mine forever. Yet you can keep it only by giving it as it was given you. Could you be alone there when it was given you because God did not will to be alone? Could you be alone there when it was given you because God did not will to be alone? God's mind cannot be lessened. It can only be increased, for everything he creates has a function of creating. Love does not limit, and what it creates is not limited. To give without limit is God's will for you, because only this can bring you the joy that is his and that he wills to share with you. Your love is as boundless as his because it is his. Gosh, I just really love that paragraph. I wonder if I could read the whole thing in first person. Maybe you'd like to read along with me in first person. God has given me a place in his mind that is mine forever. Yet I can keep it only by giving it as it was given me. Could I be alone there when it was given me because God did not will to be alone? God's mind cannot be lessened. It can only be increased, for everything he creates as a function of creating. Love does not limit, and what it creates is not limited. To give without limit is God's will for me, because only this can bring the joy that is his and that he wills to share with me. My love is as boundless as his because it is his. What a thought. Well, Jesus tells us that we have a place in the mind of God that is ours forever. But a condition of keeping that place is to give it as it was given us. We are creators, and we are meant to increase the mind of God through creation. We are without limits because love is without limits, and thus we are to share in this way to know the joy of our boundless love. What a picture this is. I am in God forever, creating forever, loving and joyful forever. There are no limits on self and no limits on love. With no body made to limit and separate, there's nothing to fear, no sickness, suffering, or death. Without an other, there's no one to push away and no reason to and no place to push you. In God, all have all, so there is nothing to be jealous of, no reason for resentment, no feelings of rejection, abandonment, loss, or lack. Of course, I examine my life and see that this is not happening. In making this world of illusion, I have not created, that is, I have not increased the mind of God. This is not a world of limitless sharing and limitless love. In my desire to experience something else, I've tried to freeze love into forms I call bodies and other objects separate from each other, thus arresting creation at these artificial boundaries. I've tried to limit the limitless. My goodness, I've been attempting to lessen God. I do this again and again all day long. For instance, I see a homeless person, and instead of recognizing God in this one, I see him as less than in so many ways and different than me. Please, God, different than me. I see a beautiful and wealthy person, and I fail to see God, and I fail to recognize this one as me, playing the beautiful and rich woman. Instead, I see only differences and feel only less than. Where's the wholeness, the boundless love? Where's the joy of creation in this thing I made and that I renew every day, every minute of the day? And God, where's God in this? Where's love? Yet, even here in this dream of not God, I can choose to perceive differently and thus bring our sleeping mind closer to awakening, closer to God and my place in God. As I do this, as I allow more and more healing, I begin to feel something that is not a dream, or at least is a dream of something not a dream. As I see this homeless man, my mind expands to include him, to know him as a light hidden within those rags in that stench. I know that light because that light remains in my mind as well. As our lights merge, our minds are enlightened. If you saw us on the street, you would never know that a miracle had occurred, but my heart feels it. And I never again feel quite the same degree of separation as I did before. There's a crack in the wall of isolation I have built between me and not me that can never be sealed again. I find it easier and even joyful to continue this practice, to allow the light in my mind to see the light in minds all around me. This is how I find my way back to God, to love, to creation, to my eternal place in the mind of God. I notice someone near me and I think to myself, there I am. I open my heart and mind to this one. No barriers, no defenses, just the joy of reunion. In the past, I prayed and prayed for union, for Christ's vision, for forgiveness. All alone, I had nothing to do except open to love and let it in. Only needed to stop defending separation and desire wholeness. Holy Spirit, I love the thought of spending the day reuniting with my cells. As I study with fellow students, drive in heavy traffic, face another, or however many other forms of separation we put into place, please help me remember my purpose. Help me to remember what you have shown me this morning. Please heal the mind that imagines separation. This is the experience I asked for, but now I long for love and union, and I long for God. Paragraph 7. Could any part of God be without his love? Could any part of his love be contained? God is your heritage because his one gift is himself. How can you give except like him if you would know his gift to you? Give then without limit and without end to learn how much he has given you. Your ability to accept him depends on your willingness to give as he gives. Your fatherhood and your Father are one. God wills to create, and your will is his. It follows then that you will to create, since your will follows from his. And being an extension of his will, yours must be the same. To know what God gives me, I must give as he gives, without limit and without end. What must I give? God is love, and this is what he gives, so this is what I must give. In other places in the Course, Jesus tells us that sharing and communication are the closest we come to creation and to love in this world. How do I do this? How do I share and communicate endlessly and without limit? The first thing that comes to mind is that I share and communicate only in union. If I treat someone as if they're separate from me with separate interests and separate goals, I will automatically compete with them. This is not sharing and not communication. This idea of competition seems inevitable here, but in my job as a salesperson, which is the epitome of a competitive environment, I learned it differently. Here's how that worked for me. I started off looking at customers as necessary to my survival. It seemed desperately vital that I not lose them to my competition. I needed them to stay with me to ensure my income. I tried to make this happen by being the one they called on when they were having problems or needed information they didn't have. It masqueraded as caring and helpfulness, but it could be neither, as despite outward appearances, I was not sharing or communicating. I was using them to fulfill my needs. I told myself that I would be the best vendor ever. He was lucky to have me working for his interests. But the truth was, while we shared some goals, and that worked out for both of us, we were not in full communication. He wanted something from me, and I wanted something from him. That is not shared goals, but competing goals. I was not unlimited in my sharing. I don't think I can actually share and communicate fully and completely without limits, as long as I believe that there is this gap that exists between each of us. The fact we use these bodies to promote that belief doesn't help us remember our union, but neither does it make it impossible to remember we are one. I know this is true because though I have not succeeded in knowing we are one all the time, I've done it sometimes. If I can know that what we are sometimes, I can know it always. So I practice it. I ask the Holy Spirit to look with me at my relationships. These work relationships, as imperfect as they were, became the way I learned to see differently. I asked the Holy Spirit to look with me at the customer I was talking to and help me to see him truly. It is what I would do in all relationships. I did this in my relationships with my children, my friends, and my coworkers. They're all the same relationship because we are all one family of God, one mind. As I've become more and more open to his answer, I noticed that where I used to feel needful in a relationship, I began to feel loving. It took a while and was never perfect within the work environment, but there were remarkable changes. I did start to honestly care about the people I served and eventually lost my taste for competition as I discovered the joy of sharing. It makes me smile as I think how confused I used to be about all this. I thought I was working as a salesperson to make a living, to establish myself in the hierarchy of salespeople, to impress my boss, and for many other reasons, ego reasons. But in retrospect, I see the real purpose. I was there to learn what it means to share and to communicate. Those lessons served me well and continue to do so in all my relationships. I'm so grateful now as I see how much happier and more peaceful I am when I succeed in giving fully, needing nothing in return. Even though it is not yet perfect giving, it is such a sweet thing, this giving as my Father gives. It is a gift of fatherhood, and I claim it now. This is as my Father in his unlimited love would have me do. And when I have accepted it fully, I will be very close to creating as God creates. How exciting to think about that. Thank you so much for joining me in this reading. I hope that you found it helpful. If you did, then please like it. If you haven't yet, please subscribe. And thanks so much to those of you who have been subscribing. I appreciate that. I'll be back soon with another reading. See you then.